So last week, I just did a standalone sermon on the prodigal son. So that was just a one-time thing. And now this week, we're going to be starting a new series, the book of Esther. And so I'm really excited to start this new series because I don't feel like Esther really gets all that much attention. I don't really feel like we read it all that much. But for real, it's like some of my favorite literature in the Bible. It's really good. Some of it is so gripping. And at some points, seriously, you'll be like at the end of your seat. I think it's really good stuff. And so for the next 7 weeks, that's what we'll be going through. So I've decided to name this series, it's called Things Are Worse Than They May Seem.
Repeat that, please.
Things are worse than they may seem. It's a pretty joyous title, right? But I think it reflects the mood of Esther and the message of Esther. And you'll see what I mean when we get into chapter 1 here. But today, I will be going through the first chapter. And I think you'll understand why I decided to name it that. Things are worse than they may seem. So the first chapter kind of sets the scene for the entire story. None of the story makes sense without the first chapter. The background and the character development of this story. And so I'd like to read through the story, walk through with you guys so you can experience the world that these people are living in. What is the world that they're living in? What are they experiencing? So let's jump in on Esther in your Bibles. Just read along. Start at verses 1 and 2. This is what happened during the time of Xerxes. The Xerxes who ruled over 127 provinces stretching from India to Cush. At that time, King Xerxes reigned from his royal throne in the citadel of Susa. Xerxes is a pretty sweet name. It's a pretty cool name. And actually, if you research it, Xerxes was actually a real person. This guy actually was a king, a ruler of the Persian Empire. So if you didn't know, the Persian Empire was one of the most successful empires in world history. One of the biggest empires. It stretched from Egypt into Europe, up in Europe, and even into Asia. I mean, it's massive, it's huge. And so here we get introduced to our first character in this story, King Xerxes, as the first, probably most important character in this whole book. And in the next several verses, the king's character and who he is revealed to us. What kind of person is King Xerxes? We find out here. Let's read from verses 3 through 8. In the 3rd year of his reign, he gave a banquet for all his nobles and officials. The military leaders of Persia and Media, the princes and the nobles of the provinces were present. For a full 180 days, he displayed the vast wealth of his kingdom, the splendor and glory of his majesty. When these days were over, the king gave a banquet lasting 7 days in the enclosed garden of the king's palace for all the people, from least to the greatest, who were in the citadel of Susa. The garden had hangings of white and blue linen fastened with cords of white linen and purple material of silver rings on marble pillars. There were couches of gold and silver on mosaic pavement of porphyry, marble, mother of pearl, and other costly stones. Wine was served in goblets of gold, each one different from the other, and the royal wine was abundant, in keeping with the king's liberality. By the king's command, each guest was allowed to drink with no restrictions, for the king instructed all the wine stewards to serve each man what he wished. So if there's one thing for sure that we know about King Xerxes, is that the man loves his banquets. It said that he threw a banquet for 180 days, and then after that 180 days, he threw another one for 7 days. This guy loves to eat, man. It's incredible. Verse 8, though, pretty much sums up, I think, the lifestyle of this guy, of King Xerxes, and all of the people of his kingdom. It says, verse 8, by the king's command, each guest was allowed to drink with no restriction. For the king instructed all the wine stewards to serve each man what he wished. They were allowed to drink with no restrictions. Basically, the king has so much wealth and power. I mean, the man can just do whatever the heck he wants, whenever he wants. And if anyone tells him otherwise, he's not going to have it. That's not good. And to be honest, in America, we can sometimes get this state of mind too. We can kind of live like this. The ultimate goal in life is to be detached from any kind of restriction. We want freedom. That's what we want. That is the ultimate source of happiness. We just want to attain so much power, so much wealth, that we can just be free from any restrictions. We can be free to just indulge in whatever we want, right? King Xerxes is the perfect example of this. I think we have a messed up view of freedom and what freedom is and what it really looks like. Because I don't really think we really want that. I don't think so. We idolize happiness and go to things other than God instead of just going to God. One of my favorite all-time quotes by C.S. Lewis, who's an author, is this one. He says, "It would seem that our Lord finds our desires not too strong, but too weak. We are half-hearted creatures fooling about with drink and sex and ambition, when infinite joy is offered to us like an ignorant child who wants to go on making mud pies in a slum because he cannot imagine what is meant by the offer of a holiday at the sea. We are far too easily pleased. We are far too easily pleased." Xerxes is living what we would think is the perfect life. He can do whatever he wants. He has all the money in the world. He can just do whatever he wants. That sounds pretty great. But is he really living the perfect life? Is that true? Because I think Xerxes, in reality, is living an empty life, a purposeless life. He's living only for himself and himself alone. That's it. That's all he cares about. That's not really a life I want to live. Not really. Here in this text, we see Xerxes' true spirit. If there's one thing you can remember about King Xerxes, it's that he's all about himself. He's all about himself. So let's continue reading, starting in verse 9, ending at 12. And here we get into the main plot of chapter 1. The main plot. So Queen Vashti also gave a banquet. Wow, another banquet. Crazy, man. Another banquet for the women in the royal palace of King Xerxes. On the 7th day, when King Xerxes was in high spirits from wine, so basically Xerxes is drunk, which he probably was most of the time, he commanded the 7 eunuchs who served him, Mehuman, Biztha, Harbona, Bigtha, Abictha, Zethar, and Carcass, those are cool names too, to bring before him Queen Vashti, wearing her royal crown, in order to display her beauty to the people and nobles, for she was lovely to look at. When the attendants delivered the king's command, Queen Vashti refused to come. Then the king became furious and burned with anger. Now, a detail that is overlooked. Whenever it says that King Xerxes commanded Queen Vashti to come to him wearing her royal crown, basically he's saying, come only wearing your royal crown. Yeah, so you can see why she didn't want to do that. So Xerxes takes his egotistical, selfish lifestyle and is now imposing it on Queen Vashti. I can do whatever I want. You have to do whatever I say. And she just didn't want anything to do with it. She said no. And what was his response? He was furious and he burned with anger. He's like a little toddler when he doesn't get what he wants. He just throws a fit. He's a grown man. So let's finish up reading the story and see what happens to Queen Vashti. Starting in verse 13. Since it was customary for the king to consult experts in matters of the law and justice, he spoke with the wise men who understood the times and were closest to the king. Karshena, Shethar, Admatha, Tarshish, Marish, Marsena, and Memucan. Man, I'm glad we don't name people those names anymore. The 7 nobles of Persia and Media who had special access to the king and were highest in the kingdom. They asked, according to the law, what must be done to Queen Vashti? She has not obeyed the command of King Xerxes that the eunuchs have taken her. Then Memucan replied, in the presence of the king and the nobles, Queen Vashti has done wrong not only against the king, but also against the nobles and the peoples of all the provinces of King Xerxes. For the queen's conduct will become known to all the women, and so they will despise their husbands and say, King Xerxes commanded Queen Vashti to be brought before him, but she would not come. This very day, the Persian and Median women of the nobility who had heard about the queen's conduct will respond to all the king's nobles in the same way. There will be no end of disrespect and discord. Therefore, if it pleases the king, Let him issue a royal decree, and let it be written in the laws of Persia and Media, which cannot be repealed, that Vashti is never again to enter the presence of King Xerxes. Also let the king give her royal position to someone else who is better than she. Then when the king's edict is proclaimed throughout all his vast realm, all the women will respect their husbands from the least to the greatest. The king and his nobles were pleased with his advice, so the king did as Memucan proposed. He sent dispatches to all parts of the kingdom, to each province in its own script, and to each people in their own language, proclaiming that every man should be ruler over his own household, using his native tongue. I think this last part of chapter 1 is interesting because if you look at verse 19, I think it reveals the true nature of the king's advising council. I don't think his council really cares about doing what's right. I think they care about pleasing the king so they can benefit from it. If you look at verse 19, it says, therefore, if it pleases the king, let him issue a royal decree. If it pleases the king, that's what he cares about, pleasing the king. The king should only have to do things that pleases him, because it's all about him, right? He shouldn't have to try to do things that are right or good for the people, only things that are good for him. And so that's the beginning of our story. That is the beginning of Esther, chapter 1. Man, talk about hopeless. The king is some egotistical jerk who just cares about himself, just gets drunk every day. And the council, the leaders of the country, they just kind of go along with it. They are just all about themselves also. They just want to please the king so they can just, get more wine and more food, more banquets. That's what they want. How do you think the people feel in Persia, being led by these people? That's hopelessness. These people are all about indulging in drink and sex and whatever they want. They have no concept for what is right or wrong. They have no regard for other human life, especially the king. This is their idea of the good life. Is this your idea of the good life? Just going and indulging in drink and sex, just whatever the heck you want? Is that your idea? Because I hope it's not. I think we can find something better than that. These people are living a comfortable, glamorous life. I don't think they're growing so much in their personal life as people. And if you're not careful, you could also fall into the same trap. The end goal for these people is comfort and luxury. I think some people in our world are living with the same goal in mind. Comfort and luxury is the ultimate goal. But an end goal of comfort and luxury, it doesn't lead to a life of growth and strength. The ultimate threat to progress is not hardship, it's comfort. How do we grow as people? We go through things we don't want to do. What kind of person do you think the king is if he never has to go through anything that he doesn't want to do? Probably not a great person. These people are living such directionless, hopeless lives above anything else. These people aren't living for anything. They're hopeless. And that is the theme of this chapter, the book, really. Hopelessness. It's so dark. Hopelessness. They're living without God. But really, we were talking this morning in Sunday school to think about what you really believe in what you believe matters. And I think it's important to think critically about things. And these people are living without God. And really, if there is no God, then the reality of the king is our reality. If there is no God, then really the ultimate purpose in life is to just indulge in whatever you want. Just go and get drunk, do all the drugs, and just have sex with whoever you want. It doesn't matter. Because we're all just here by chance. We're not here for a purpose. We're just here. So who's to say that I can't do whatever I want? Especially as Americans, we have a problem. Why should I do anything nice for anybody? Because if there is no God, there's no ultimate purpose. Therefore, life is, just about indulging in whatever you want. This is the reality that Xerxes lives in. On the outside, it may look like he's having a good time. But I guarantee if you really do it, if you is such a dark chapter. Things are worse than they may seem, because they are. And this sets the scene for the rest of the story. Xerxes may not have any hope, but luckily we do. We do. We know of a God who loved us so much that he humbled himself and came down in the form of a person and died for us. And then on the third day, he did rise again. He's alive. He is the living hope in us. Xerxes loves his banquets, but none of them compare to the banquet that we're invited to in heaven. What we have really is good news. It is good news. The Greek word for gospel or good news is euangelion. Where do we get that word? Where does that come from? So euangelion was a word used by noblemen in the ancient world. So in the ancient world, whenever two cities would fight in a war, you have the soldiers, and they would go out and they would fight. But then all the people living in the city, all the civilians, they would have no idea what's going on. So how would they know if they won or not? And so what the armies would do, they would have a messenger on a horseback, and he would come back to the city to inform everyone, did we win, did we not win? Everyone anticipated this message because there was only two options. Either we won and we're stinking rich, let's throw a party, this is awesome, like let's celebrate. Or we lost and we're all probably going to die. And that first message, that euangelion, is the good news. They anticipated that message, the euangelion. It is good news. We won. We have hope. Let's celebrate. We have good news. King Xerxes and these people, they don't have that. They don't have the good news, but we do. What we have really is good news. We have hope in Jesus Christ. I'm so thankful for that. Let's pray. Lord, thank you for your hope, your love that you give us. We really could not function without your hope. I pray that we would just lean more on you and less on ourselves. Help us to trust you. Thank you for being a light in a dark world. I'm so glad